Bonsoir à tous. Bonsoir, on va commencer avec 5 minutes de retard, mais c'est pas très grave. Bienvenue à ces premiers rendez-vous de la création de cette nouvelle saison. Welcome to this new edition of the rendez-vous de la création. As you know, or as you should know, the Rendezvous de la Création lecture were created 9 years ago in 2016 by Florence Danton, who is somewhere, and I thank her because it was a great idea. And it was created by her and by the Master in Communication, Media and Creative Industries. And it's one of the key events and the key lectures of the Master. Each masterclass in this series offers students the opportunity, as you might know, to hear from an artist, from a creator who is a leader in its field. He or she can talk about his or her career path, his vocation, the vision that drives him daily. And for us, for Florence, for all the team at the School of Management, it's very important that you, as future manager in the field of creative industries or communication or media or wherever you're from, it's very important that you understand the process of creativity, that you understand what drives creators, why and how they are unique, and how actually the talent or the creativity cannot be processed or can only be understood by talking or exchanging with them. So, since 2016, students have had the chance to listen to chefs, to listen to photographers, movie directors, architects, comedians, artists, dancers, painters, and tonight you will hear a great designer, but I won't tell you more about it because Alexandre will present him. Another reason that explains why we wanted to create or to set up this Rendezvous de la Création was because I know that part of the Master CMIC, as we call it, Communication, Media and Creative Industries, but also in other masters at Sciences Po, some students are creators themselves or want to become artists or creators, be they musicians, be they scenarists, playwrights, etc. And there is a creative spirit that drives many Sciences Po students and that makes them often unique. And so this rendezvous are also made for you to discuss about art, creativity with fellow creators and to understand the professional world that you might aspire to. So tonight I'll let you in good hands with someone that either you know if you are M2 students or you will learn to know if you are M1 students, with Alexandre Kouchner, and tonight's guest, Mathieu Lehanneur. Donc je vous souhaite à tous une très très belle soirée. I wish you the best for tonight. I hope that you will learn a lot. Et sans plus attendre, je laisse la parole à Alexandre the Great Kouchner. Merci beaucoup.
Bonsoir. Franchement, pas ouf. Bonsoir. Bonsoir. Vous remarquez que je suis seul et que je fais plus de bruit que vous. Salut. Mathieu, on s'en va, il dort. Bonsoir à toutes et à tous. On va ressortir fatigué. Welcome to this very first rendezvous de la création and de l'impact de la saison. Ah non, it's in English. Only one thing to know. This is a conversation. It's not a cours magistral. So you're involved in this. You're actually here to listen and to talk directly to any and all of our guests. So first I'm going to ask him a few questions, but then it's all you. It's your chance to know how he works, what makes him tick, what he likes, what he doesn't like, and or if he has a spot as an intern in his studio. Today we're going to try and lift the veil of the magic of objects. And we're all surrounded by objects. They're human-made, they're everywhere. Usually we use and discard them. But maybe they can be more. Maybe they can define a connection to this world and to others. Maybe objects can be magical. At least in the world of our guest, they can be. Fire can be made with light and water. Electric bike can be folded. And a weather app can comfort the elderly. So the real question is, what does it take to make an object magical? Or what does it take to make a magical object? That is our guest's craft, for which he won the City of Paris Grand Prize for Creation and the Best Design at Large Award at the Design Miami Art Basel Fair. His works are already part of the collections at the MoMA in New York, the Centre Pompidou and the Musée des Arts Décoratifs à Paris. Mesdames et messieurs, voici Mathieu Lehanneur.
Bonsoir. Pas pareil. Ouais. Bon,
Ah ouais, en fait, c'est une question de fame.
ouais, en fait, c'est pas ça. Non, c'est pas mieux, c'est pas mieux.
Mathieu, thank you for being with us, and thank you for being our first guest of the season.
Thank you.
The idea of this conversation is to understand how you work, why you work the way you work, and why your work works. Ouais.
Okay.
And I just want to get a sense of where all your creation comes from. We've had people here in the past who said that they've sort of always known what they wanted to do. They would dance, or they would sing, or they would draw. From what I've read, as a kid, you marveled at escalators, which is quite a specific wonder as a kid.
Yeah.
Were you already into drawing and arts and craft? Was it the mechanic aspect of it? Why escalators?
It's a good question. Why escalators? Because, you know, when I was a kid, but still now, I think it's the perfect balance between super functional object, because it's quite useful, and at the same time quite magical. And since many years I was thinking, in which mind, in which brain, the idea appeared of turning a staircase that is supposed to be the most static object you could get in architecture into something that is moving on itself. And finally, I did research about where does the escalator come from, and I brought it come from this. Actually, it was initially a kind of how to say that?
Like a bike?
It was for Coney Island, you know, in New York, something just to have fun, you know. Initially, the very first patent in US for escalators was not for its functional aspect, but mainly because it was fun. So basically, as I understood, the idea was to be on the stairs and go up and go on the rail and go down. Mm-hmm. And finally, probably they popped out the idea of, but it might be super useful for architecture and for commercial building and so on. So, but for me, I love also the fact that in an escalator you can choose to walk, or you can choose to remain static, and you can be up at the same time. So everything combined, the technique, the technology, the magical effect, the relationship between a human being and an object, probably was the very first seed to become a designer.
And so you already knew at that time that you wanted to make that type of thing, or
No,
it was completely
no,
out
absolutely
of the blue?
not. No, I finally decided to become a designer when I was 18, 20.
What would you have done if you were not a designer?
Probably a doctor. But if I would be a doctor, probably I would be a kind of super doctor. I mean, a doctor able to make the diagnosis, and but at the same time creating its own medicine, its own pills, and so on, and not to just give what you should take, but to take the entire treatment.
So Dr. House meets Breaking Bad. Sort of
Definitely,
thing. Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. You said that it was around 18 or 20 or so that you knew you wanted to be a designer. So after high school, you actually went on to study at l'École des Beaux-Arts, which is a very prestigious school of the arts in Paris, but you left rather quickly.
Yes, after 5-6 months, yes.
Which is odd because it's very hard to get into that school. So what happened?
I started to paint, to sculpt, to do many different things, and I very quickly felt that I do not imagine myself to be, alone in my workshop or in my studio in front of my own obsession or whatever. I wanted to be more in the middle of something. I wanted to be more in the middle of a team, of commissioner, of complexity, I wanted I wanted to receive some question. And if you are an artist, you need to ask yourself your own question and provide the right answer for that. So I wanted to get the answer coming from outside. So
it's already a matter of connection, of being at the nexus of several things, several counterparts.
Definitely. And for my my thesis at the end of design school, you need to make a kind of thesis. You got 6 or 7 months to write something, and most of the people, all of them actually, choose a topic, choose a subject they want to work on it, and I didn't want to choose a topic, and I create a new way of making a thesis, and I select randomly 5 persons, everyone working on different fields, and ask them to send me a question they would ask for themselves according to their professional world and context. And I wanted, even for the thesis, to be in front of this way of working. Ask me something, and I will try to give an answer. Probably not the right answer, maybe not the answer they would expect, but trying in a very short time frame to bring something.
Right after your thesis, you graduated from l'École nationale supérieure de création industrielle Les Ateliers, which is a more applied school, another very
it's an industrial design school.
That was in 2001.
Yes.
And once you've graduated, rather than join a studio, you immediately launched your own, which is quite the risk when you're basically just a very old student. What happened? Could you not work for someone else? Did you already want it to be very free? What happened?
Actually, I didn't create my own studio just after school because I didn't get any clients, I didn't get any money, I didn't get any atelier or workshop or whatever. So I created my own studio, but basically I was alone in my room.
We have a lot of studios out there.
Yes, definitely. And no, because at the very beginning, it was not so clear in my mind, but I was pretty convinced that it's quite difficult to make an idea that is always something quite fragile at the beginning, able to reach the end. In the end of the user or in the home of the user. And the more you can get some people between your fragile idea and the final user, the more it's going to be complex. So basically, all my life, I tried to erase everything that could occur between what I want to do and the people who probably would like to get it. So even at the very beginning, I didn't want it to basically trying to convince my project manager that would have to convince the CEO, would have to convince the distributor, would have to convince the final consumer. So too much people. So I always try to erase them one after one.
You said you were sort of alone in your room and you called it a design studio, but in 2003, so just 2 years after your graduation, while you're in your own studio, your graduation project on medication joined the permanent collection of the MoMA.
Yes.
Meaning you're a recently graduated student whose work is already in one of the most prestigious collections of design and artworks in the world. So how did that happen? And how does it feel to already be in a museum? As a very young designer, was the intent to immediately join a collection, or?
No, first of all, the concept, in few words, about this project for my diploma project in design school was to trying to rethink and redesign what could be, or in my opinion, what should be a treatment, what should be a medicine. And we knew, and it's still the same case today, that 1 on 2 medicine, 1 on 2 pill is not taken correctly. 1 on 2. 50%. And not because of a kind of lack of efficiency of the active principle of the medicine, but just because of the human being, just because of our behaviors, yours, mine. And because some people believe in the treatment, so they will take in the right way. Some people take too much because they are fear. Some people go to take them at the pharmacy, but will never get them. So for all this type of parameters, so I wanted to trying to understand this kind of behavior aspect, of psychological aspect, and trying to redesign the medicine in that way. And
that's what we're seeing,
yes,
right?
So at the end, it was a collection of several medicines. Just to give you, I brought this one just as an example. This one is asthma treatment, and more specifically for kids. And this asthma treatment compared to Ventoline, that when we get it, you feel physically the effect. To reduce the crisis, you need to take what we call in French traitement de fond, a long-term treatment. And for that, basically, you do not feel anything. So I wanted to create a dependency. I wanted to induce the kids to take its asthma treatments. And for that, of course, I wanted to play on the dependency, but not to make the kids dependent on the treatments, but to make him or her feel that the treatments need the kid to be in the right state. So basically, the shape was a kind of very geometric shape like this, and all night long will blow itself, like you can see here. And when you wake up in the morning, when the kid is waking up in the morning, you can see that the very pure and geometrical shape that was the day after becomes something a bit heel in a way.
So it starts like the image that we see underneath,
yes,
and it becomes like the balloon.
Definitely. And in the morning, you have to take it. It's blow itself, and it go back to its initial state. So by this way, you feel that, okay, just like a kind of Tamagotchi strategy. Tamagotchi was for the youngest of the
they were
audience.
Born at
Tamagotchi
the Tamagotchi
was
period.
a very basic electronic device that basically you need to feed the electronic animal inside, otherwise it's going to pass away. So in this way, it was just playing on this type of aspect. So yes, as you said, the entire collection of therapeutic objects entered the MoMA collection. It was absolutely incredible, as you may suppose. I was super happy of that. Even if at the very beginning I was designing them to be in every single pharmacies, and between 2001 and 2003, I spent weeks and months knocking at the door of pharmaceutical industry CEOs just to show the project, to explain them. We should do that. Look at the 1 on 2 pills issue. And basically they told me, we know, you're right. You're absolutely right. And definitely the strategy you propose really makes sense, but they told me, why should we doing that? Why? The business model is not so bad so far. So it was quite honest, quite cynical at the same time, but quite honest. And yes, one day I received an email from the MoMA, told me that we learn that you made a project about a new way of considering the medicine, and we'd like to exhibit in the MoMA, and after that we would like to get it for the permanent collection. In a way, I'm proud of that. But the most important thing, in my opinion, is it's a very good news to know that such prestigious, big, massive museum like the MoMA gets spies everywhere, even in a unknown young designer in his bedroom. They know everything, and they be able to pick up and say, okay, this makes sense and we want to get it.
I'm still thinking about this CEO who says, yeah, we're not taking the drugs.
But things will change. Huh?
Is this what design is for you then? Because this is really the question that we have to answer. What is design? Is design functionality and shape for usage? Is it a simple equation as that?
The first step is what is happening in the mind of, in that case, a patient. And for that, I discuss a lot with doctors, with general practitioners, with scientists, with pharmaceutical industry specialists, just to trying to understand the final user, the patient, and the complexity of the pharmacology. And for all of them, it was quite important for me not to propose something that would be impossible in terms of pharmacology. And there is a kind of scientific field that we call galenic, and galenic will decide, for example, what will be the right way for an active principle to targeting the right things. Do we have to go through your skin, by your mouth, by your nose, by other ways? And by this way, they will prepare, they will cover in a way the active principle to get it arriving in your kidneys, for example, in a perfect state. So you need to work at the same time continuously with all this aspect. And focusing on not being anymore a designer, but being a kid. I am not asthmatic, but I have to close my eyes. I think, no, I'm a kid. I got asthma. I take my Ventolin quite in the right way, but my parents told me, no, you need to take the long way treatments because it's going to reduce the crisis. Okay, we'll take it, but the day after, I forgot, I do not feel anything, it's useless, and so on. So you need to be in the mind of the final user, and step by step trying to playing with different type of bricks, including all the constraints provided by the physical and pharmacological constraint, and making day after day, building the project.
You say you have to be in the mind of the people who use it, and so you've been in the mind of young kids who were afflicted by a disease, and in the medical field, you also went in the mind of elderly people.
Yes.
You created a palliative care unit for the Diaconess Hospital. It's called Tomorrow is Another Day. Can you sort of walk through it? Because so this sort of burgeoning Tamagotchi, we have an idea, you want to play with it, but what happens when you have to take care of people who in reality are dying, and you're just there to ease their passing?
First of all, the project we talked before was a project I decided to make because it was for my diploma project. But this one was a pure commission coming from the head of a big hospital in Paris called Les Diaconesses, Croix-Saint-Simon. And I received a phone call from the head of the hospital explaining me that basically, I talked for him, he said, we do have one of the best palliative care departments, more or less worldwide, because we were one of the first. Our staff is one of the best because with a huge experience in terms of relationship with the patient, in terms of chemical aspect, we are the best, in terms of technology, we are the best. But he told me that, and this is a photos of it, of this department, we are in a hospital for obvious reason, and on one part of the corridor, there is a cancer department, oncology. And we are on the other side of the corridor, palliative care department. And he told me that we are not just like oncology departments. It's not the same issue. It's not the same way to interact with the patient. We cannot be only focused basically on the body, focused on the molecule. In the palliative care department, there is no escape in a way. The only thing is we do not target the cure, we're just targeting the way how can we interact in different way, relationship or chemical aspect, to make the last days or the last week the most beautiful as we can try. So he told me basically, Mathieu, would you accept to design a project for the patient? And basically, would you accept to design the very last object that people will see in the life? So I felt the heaviness of the mission, but of course, I said yes, of course. We met the days after, and he told me, do you want to meet the patient? And I said no. No, because basically I didn't want to meet the asthma kids. So I did the same way, that I just to imagine myself being in my room, being suffering, being of course quite anxious, waiting for a visit from my kids, wife, brother, mother, who knows, and what can I talk about in such context? So trying to put everything basically in this creative ball. And I came back to him basically after 5-6 months, because I wanted to be sure that the idea would deserve to be done. And I explained them that I wanted to play on the idea of sky. I wanted to give the opportunity for the patient who do not have a potential tomorrow to always know what tomorrow will look like. And the idea was to bring a new kind of window in every single room of the department. But this window, just like compared to this one, would be not connect to here in Paris and now, but connect to wherever you want and tomorrow. So we'll always know what tomorrow will look like in terms basically of weather. So the objects was basically quite a technological object containing an LED screen, containing a super powerful computer, and basically gathering all the available information about the weather forecast worldwide. And basically the idea, the scenario was the nurse and the staff had to pre-connect the device with the place where the patient will arrive, were born. Just like in a hotel when you said, welcome, Alexandre, you know. Here it's a way to say, welcome, we know you, we were waiting for you, basically. And we connect the piece with the place where you're born. But the patient can, of course, change location wherever they want, because my daughter lives in Marseille, so I want to be connected with Marseille. And basically, I spent when I was a teenager, I spent time in Sydney, Australia, so I want to be connected with Sydney. And basically, the staff arrive with an iPad and say, okay, let's put some Sydney. And you get the sky of Sydney for tomorrow. And the second aspect of this kind of strategy was coming from all the testimonies I heard from the nurses and staff, was basically the heaviness of the relationship, in most of the case, came from the relatives, came from your family who are going to visit you. Because, as we may imagine, it's quite difficult to talk with someone without any future. We continuously talk about the future. Our future might be next weekend, next holidays, when I will be retired, in 2 years, and so on. We always, our spaces work in that way. But when you have to discuss with someone without any future, they told me that it's quite difficult to start a basic conversation. And by this device, we discover that people entering the room and know, oh, where is it? It's Marseille. Oh, but it's quite rainy in Marseille. And just by telling that, you're just going back to normal life. Just
not
like
talking about death anymore.
No, definitely. And everything turned to become more easy. And just a short story about this. One day, they told me that a woman wanted to change the sky every couple of days. One day it was Singapore, the day after Tokyo, Los Angeles. And the staff asked, okay, we can change the sky whatever you want, but may I ask why? And the woman said that because my grandson is a pilot. So thanks to your things, I may text him that in Washington it seems to be quite cold. So
wear your jumper.
Yes. So it was a way for her to become or to remain a mother or grandmother to the very last moment. So I love the fact that an object, quite technological stuff, might be totally able to create that.
This is an object with a very direct impact and a direct use. As you say, you put it in the room and it's programmed and the patient feels and connects to the world in another way. How do you design something when the use case is slightly less clear? For example, when it's about connecting the faithful to gods or the heavens. There you're making the connection between the patient and the weather. All right, there's an app for that in a way. But you also designed the altar of the Saint-Hilaire church. And a church we tend to have a fixed design. I mean, and it's to establish an unclearer connection than with the weather. So how did you approach a space that is both sacred and also so geometrically fixed?
Exactly what I did for the other ones, just to be in the mind of a believer. I'm not, to be in the mind of a tourist who entering this church and talking with the priest. Basically, the commission for the project you mentioned was a priest, very old one that was actually, and who asked me, Mathieu, I am in a very beautiful church. It was a very beautiful church, a Roman church from this one, from the 11th century. And UNESCO World Heritage listed, beautiful one. And he told me that, look at the core of the church. The core is a strategic place, basically, of the church, because it's in architectural way, it's at the middle of this cross. And basically, this is the place where the priest is talking to the audience. And he told me that I want people, when they're entering the room, feeling that this is something. This is not a public place. This is not just stone. This is something special. Special for the Christians, but special for anyone. So, and they didn't get a lot of money because we are in France and church do not a lot of money. And basically the commission was to design, as you said, the altar of the church. But I was remembering what he said by people entering the church and feeling what, I was just entering because I was a tourist, but wow, this is something. I feel something strong, you know. And I decided to remain focused on this aspect of the commission. And I told to the priest, whatever the altar I can design, nothing will happen, I'm sure. We need to make something more ambitious, more big, more impactful in a way. I know that do not get some money for that, but according to what you explain, I think this is the right way to do. And basically, more than this just altar, I'll design mainly this kind of huge platform made out of several layers of white marble. And the idea was to make the feeling that something, just like the top of an iceberg in a way, would emerge from the floor. Because basically I was thinking that how can I put something new in 11th century church? And it's going to be a permanent installation, you know? So I was not super comfortable by adding something new. So I wanted to inverse this story and tell the story that there was an existing and huge white stone in the earth. And probably this church have been done right here because there was this huge stone. And in the Bible, there is a lot of kind of parabolic story about the stone. There's something like, Peter, you're going to be a stone. Pierre, sur cette pierre, tu construiras ton église, et blah, blah, blah. And so the stone, the idea of stone is quite a key point in the Bible. And I was super interested by the fact that the Roman architects and the Roman scientists were pretty, not even convinced, they knew that there was a huge force coming from the earth. The believer thought it was a question of God. The scientists trying to understand, we feel the energy, but all of them were super agreed that, no, there is a strong energy. And the location of the church was not due to the urban strategy, but only because, wow, there is something magnetic right here, so the church has to be right here. And the Roman was super involved in this type of thought. So the idea of working with this idea of stone really makes sense for me that way. And thanks to the priest, and since I turned the budget quite high compared to it was the initial one, but he spent 2 or 3 years trying to find the money, and I was thinking that, okay, the project is off, it's done, but it's not a big deal. I do prefer to provide what I think we should do compared to make an altar that probably would not create something. So no, it's a project quite important for me.
What I'm sensing is that through the objects that you're creating, what you're sort of designing are emotions. You said so yourself. For the people that are dying, it's a way to connect to the future. For the faithful, it's a way to see the elevation, even physically. So what we're saying is that design is about emotions. It's about what people feel when they see your object. Is that also what made you draw the Olympic cauldron the way you did? Because we've never seen a cauldron like this before. We've seen Olympic fires. It's a very nice torch, and it can be lit, and then it sits in the stadium. You designed a sun that floats and that comes back. How did that come about?
First of all, it came about the huge freedom that the commissioner gave me. It was the same for the head of the hospital. It was the same for the priest. They didn't take the pen with me. They tried to explain what they wanted to reach in terms of emotion, in terms of relationship, in terms of spirituality, so on. And the Olympic Committee did the same with me. It was a competition. The Olympic Committee select 10 or 12 designers they wanted to work with, and I had to design the torch, the relay cauldron, and the Olympic cauldron. For the torch, it was not strict, but more clear about what they are waiting for. I mean, in terms of size, in terms of weight, in terms of complexity, and so on. For the Olympic cauldron, in the brief, there was basically 2 or 3 lines in the brief. You will have, during the competition, we had 3 weeks to design these 3 objects. It was quite short. And during the Christmas holidays. And it was, they told me, you will have to design an Olympic cauldron. We would love, or we would like, if it may be outside of the stadium, because we knew at this moment that the opening ceremony will be outside the stadium. So we'd love if the Olympic cauldron might be outside.
Which has never been done before.
But no. But what is supposed to be an Olympic cauldron is something, in most of the case, big, with a flame on top of it. Okay, nice.
You have 3 weeks. And you have 3 weeks.
Yes, because basically they were super late, and initially they wanted to did it by themselves, and finally they called for others.
Well, there's a reason why it's called the French Olympics at this stage. So, how does it work? What's in there? Because it's a flame, but there's no fire.
It depends. On the torch, it's a flame. It's a flame.
Okay, so the torch that we see was carried out, and so it's...
Yeah.
What were the constraints? It has to... Basically, the flame cannot go out, I imagine.
Yes, the constraint was the size, because it should be visible from the public and try to be high enough to avoid to burn the airs of the torch bearers. Eh oui.
Pas con.
Like, it's quite hot, you know. And the weight, because even a kid should be able to carry on the torch. And on top of this, it was the flame cannot going off, you know. Whatever the weather condition, whatever the speed of the wind, whatever if the torchbearer would fall. So we made a lot of tests, you know, throwing the torch everywhere to put it in the water, so many things. But more constraint. And the chance I had and the smartness of the commission was, and it was, as I know, the very first time, they asked the same person to design the three main assets. Usually, they give the torch to one creators and the Olympic cauldron to another one. But they wanted to make them as kind of consistency and basically able to build the same type of story. And this is why it appears as kind of not a family, but a link between all of them. And yes, for the Olympic cauldron, basically I start from the motto of Paris 2024, that was in French, "Ouvrons grand les jeux." This way of trying to welcome people and to make an object that people can go very next to, be able to touch, and so on. And I put on the table during the competition this idea of a flying object. I wanted basically to make an object able to be visible from almost everywhere in Paris. I wanted this object being able to play with the sun, as you talked about, because the very first flame is coming from the sun before the torch relay, and I wanted basically at the end to bring back the flame to the sun, just like a kind of loop in the story. And I wanted also to pay tribute in the kind of invention history, because the very first hot air balloon have been invented in France. It was in 1783. It was in Versailles, Château de Versailles, and few years after we invent in France the hydrogen balloon and so on. But it means at the end that the very first time that human beings have been able to fly, it was in France. Not so bad, not so bad. So it's something that I didn't know basically, all things together came out this idea of making something able to fly and to move. And you talked about the fire. As I said, we get all of them 3 weeks for that. So I arrived with this idea of a balloon for the Olympic cauldron. And I do remember the question of the head of Paris 2024, who asked me, what about the fire? The fire, just like the torch, you know, the fire with the gas, okay. And but you Mathieu, you mentioned you wanted to get this balloon about 60 meters high. Yes, I think it would be the right height to be seen from a lot of location. Okay, so you are told me that you propose to get a balloon flying upon Paris without any pilot, of course, with a flame, with gas inside during the Olympic Games. And okay, I told to myself, okay, it's done. C'est mort. En français, c'est mort. Okay. I was super happy with the idea, but okay, I said, no, of course. Because I tried to answer the question, but I said, maybe we can provide a kind of tubes, flexible tubes. We would provide the gas upon there, or we could put large canister of gas in the nacelle, in the balloon itself. So of course, super safe. Of course not. But after that, I felt that it doesn't seem to be dead. I thought in the eyes that maybe the idea would deserve to exist. And they explained me the day after, they told me that you won the competition, Mathieu, and we're going to make the 3 assets with you. They told me that you should very quickly talk to EDF, the national electrical company in France, because they have a new technology to create a new type of flame that would probably will be more relevant compared to gas for your project. So the idea of getting and creating this new type of fire came out from my stupid answer.
And so what's the flame if it's not fire?
So basically the flame,
Is that what you showed? And you said it's going to be big, it's going to fly, and
yes.
It's going to be beautiful.
It was just for me to. I showed this during the jury just to say, look, you know, in the Paris skyline you get the Louvre Pyramide, you get the Obélisque Concorde, you get the Arc de Triomphe, Arche de la Défense. Look, wow, it would be beautiful to have a sphere in this collection of forms. Okay, but you do have first to solve the fire issue. And basically, the system for the fire is based on a very simple way. It's based on an LEDs light, so super high intensity light, and you create a mist of water, so tiny drops of water, that will be just upon this light. And by this way, and just by adding some fans, making this mist, these tiny drops of water, just upon the light, that would create this fire. But I bring you a short video just to remind, and because I love it.
Attention pour décollage. Voilà, c'est un objet sensible et puis là on a quelque chose dont on veut vraiment prendre soin. C'est presque sacré, la flamme olympique.
Basically, for this project, I wanted to make people cry. My main target was this, really.
Seems like it worked. Seems like it worked.
Yes, no, or at least kind of goosebump. But I didn't want us to bring something big, massive. Look at us. We are strong. We are powerful in France. No, I wanted to targeting something quite personal. Just like the kid for asthma, just like the patient, just like a relative, just like the believers or not tourists. I wanted to target that. And the very first hint that it was not so bad actually was thanks to my daughter who is here. Sorry, June, but I love this story, sorry.
Gratos.
My daughter, June, right here, is 16. And as you may know, it was quite confidential, this project. Remain focused, please. The project was quite confidential. Nobody knew about what would be occurred. But my daughter was one of the very few who was at the very beginning aware about what is preparing. And we were very next to the Olympic cauldron during the Olympics, and there was no test before, and before the opening ceremony, and she was very next to me, and nobody knew what would happen, but she knew. And when the balloon started to taking off that way, she was very next to me. I was just in kind of apnea, because I was thinking that something will happen, and she started to cry. But something not just like elegant tears like this, something, no, just think quite strong, like a kid, but a youngest kid would do, something that all your body is, something very deep. And I was thinking that, yes, so it's exactly, I mean, even someone who knew what will happen, because it's big, because Céline Dion was starting to sing. It helped, I know, it helped. But because it go from the ground to the sky, voilà. This is absolutely, it was my main target.
But it was never tested. So basically,
No.
at one point, somebody said, okay, let it fly and hope for the best?
No, it was super risky, but we knew at the very beginning it was super risky, and Tony Estanguet, the head of the Olympic Committee, knew that. But in that world, we cannot take the risk to make a test because it's quite big, and it's impossible to be sure that no one will take a photo of it. So we made some tests with absolutely generical balloon, just to check the behavior of the balloon in different speed and direction of the winds. And we test the kind of ring with the fire. And for testing the ring, I do remember it was a couple months before the opening ceremony. And we it was with a grue, comment on dit, une grue, a crane, no.
A crane?
Crane. It was with a 60-meter high crane, and just to see the fires and how it would be seen by the public. And believe me or not, but 15 minutes after we made the test, it was in the middle of nowhere in Brittany, in France. We heard the firemen coming with a big truck, blah, blah, blah. And I said, there is a fire on top of the crane. No, it's not a real fire. It's a real fire. I am a fireman, so I know what is a fire. No, it's not. It's a fire made with light and water, blah, blah. But this is the only test we made. But the very first time that the balloon, as we know, is taken off, it was for the opening ceremony.
And of course, and the results that
Yes.
we know. This is probably one of the images that really went around the world during the entire Olympics. This was one of the features that was most seen.
It's supposed to have been seen by between 5 and 6 billion people.
Okay, so they've seen that object. You've
Yes.
created that emotion everywhere. But some of your work seems almost beyond design. There was a commission for that, there was a competition, there was a purpose, and you had to test it and to build it. Some of your work seems almost gratuitous in a way. It's not meant for a very precise use. There are two examples that I have in mind. The one is called State of the World, and the other one is called Leave. When we see it's more like modern art. Is design modern art as well?
Yes, basically those two objects are based on the same type of approach. And the approach consists in taking existing information used for economic people, politics, and so on, and turning it into emotion for you and for me. And the first one I worked on was the age pyramid that all of us know. And I love the fact that this existing statistic visualization of population worldwide give you a vision of the present, because this is a living population in a country, but a potential vision of the past of the population, what were in the last 40, 50 or 60 years, because you can see what happened, you can see effect of the Second World War, for example, and you can see also the future. You can see what will be the use that is rising up from this statistic. But when you let it in this kind of two-dimension into cold mathematic statistic visualization, okay, it's just numbers, basically. So I wanted to turn it into objects, something that would be able to touch and to make them able to be compared to each other. Here you can see different type of country. On the big one, this is Qatar. Saudi Arabia, Romania, Russia, Singapore, Slovakia, Malaysia. So according to the silhouette, you can really see the state of a population, and you can see people who are living just like you right now. So for me, it's something quite emotional, and you can entering this project in different ways. You can see entering the project just by information, but you can entering just by emotion.
But is that made for a museum? Is that seen as a collection?
It's, you know, it have been done. I wanted to make it. And it would be impossible to find a client for that because it's a bit weird. But I wanted to do it since a very long time, basically, because probably a decade ago, I was attending a conference like today, and someone was using this to explain blah, 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 what will happen, the use, blah, blah, blah. And I was thinking, wow, it's incredible, this visualization, because you can see your entire country and you can see yourself. You as a person, I can see myself. I can count the layers and I can see myself. I'm here, I'm living, I'm right here. And basically, I can see the life I have lived and I can see the potential rest of my life, basically. So it's something that, wow, go from your own, entity and to a more global approach. So in this, I finally decide to make the entire world. So it's about 200 countries. So we did the entire ones, and we exhibited in Art Basel. That is a huge art fair, and we decided to show it for the very first time. It was just after COVID. It was in 2020 or 2021, and it was one step more moving because you were in the middle of this kind of atrium, you know, of all the country, and it was all the people who are living at the same moment, not in the same location, but right now. I was thinking I was alone, but no, I never thought about the people who are living in Namibia, but yes, they are living right now in Namibia.
And where is the piece now? Where's the project itself?
Some of them have been sold, and we do have some of them in stock, so if some of you wants to purchase one, I can make an offer.
We'll talk about the business model in a while. This is about the living, but you also have a piece about leave and leave,
yes,
about those who are no longer with us.
I did this one first, and it was quite interesting to see all the different silhouettes and understanding. Of course, sub-Saharan country do have the same type of shape that is basically this kind of beautiful, but kind of tragedy shape that way, because it means a lot of people will die very quickly in their life, basically. At the opposite, there is kind of US pyramid that's quite fat in a way, like a cylinder. It means basically that any newborn will live up to 70, 80 easily in a way. And I wanted to add something, and I made a new collection called Live, as you said. Live like life and live like I move. And the idea was to show, thanks to a blank canvas with just a hole inside, opening on just black, and getting the holes according to the rate of suicide from every country. And showing that never forget that committing suicide, it's of course is a tragedy, but it's maybe the very last choice we can make. We never decide to be born, but we can decide to live, whatever the reason. We can decide to live. And for me personally, the fact that, okay, I know that if I want to live, I can decide to live. And it's something that for me it's not sad. It's my freedom to decide that way. And it was super interesting to see both have been exhibited, State of the World and Live in the same exhibition, and to see that some countries, thanks to the pyramid, that you can easily think that the living conditions are quite tough, are sometimes at very last one in terms of diameter of the hole, in terms of suicide canvas.
And so what's the huge country that we see on the...
The biggest hole is Lesotho.
Les autos.
Les autos. Les autos, Ukraine and Russia arrive in the top 10. Sorry for the top 10. But in top 10, we do have Japan. France, as I remember, is probably 13 or 14, like that. And it's super interesting. And I love the fact that in these two collections, I do not have any message to transmit. I do not have any position or interpretation. I just give the facts, and I do not want to give any analysis. I let anyone to interact with the piece how they want.
These pieces, as you said, have no message.
In terms of commercial success, state of the world, I get a better success than Live. Not easy to sell Live.
You're talking about commercial success because this is a piece without a commission, but at one moment you need to make a living. You have a company. You're no longer alone in your bedroom and call it a studio.
It's a big bedroom.
So besides those very specific and spectacular projects that we've seen, you've worked with brands like Audemars Piguet, Cartier, Kenzo, Nike, Huawei. Mm-hmm. So you do have commission and you help them develop and design their own objects. But in 2016, and that's, I guess, maybe you have questions regarding that, but we won't dive into that very specific aspect. What I'm interested in is the fact that in 2016, you decided to stop working for brands directly, which is still the way you made a living. So that's a whole different business model. Why did you stop working directly for the people who can pay you for your work?
It's a totally different business model, and it wouldn't have been possible 20 years ago. But as I said before, it's quite complex to sell something. And the more you're going to add people between what you create and the final consumer, patient, user, the more it's going to be difficult. So. And just like those projects, State of the World, and even Live, there is no brand who wants to do that. There is no editor. So those projects, you need to do it by yourself. So at the end, it's a balance between what will bring you some money and that will not. But you never know at the beginning. You never know. There is a lot of projects I was thinking it was a success and have not been a success so far. And some of them I love them, but not fully convinced at this stage. And quite easily they became a success. So it's at the end it's just a question of balance. But what I'm pretty sure that an idea, one more time, it's something quite fragile, and by experience you can design something. You design in 3D rendering, plans, finishes, everything is decided. I want this glossy, this matte, this shape, blah, blah, blah. And you give it to the brand who pay you to design this. And because the marketing department, because production department, because of budget constraint, because of CEOs, because the friend of the CEOs, I do not like black, I do not like glossy, blah, blah, blah. At the end, it will never be just like you would like to be. And when something in that world of object, when you change just the tiny details, you can lose the magic effect of it. You can lose the magnetic effect of it. I'm convinced about that. And by experience, when you give your ideas to someone else, he will never take care of it just like you would do by yourself. So this is the reason why we decide finally to work in a totally vertical way. I mean, from the very first intuition to the last piece, put it into the crate and shipping to your client.
So that means you sell concepts, furnitures, that like we see this table that we see right there.
Yeah.
But that means you're a brand now. What you sell is Mathieu Lehanneur's design.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And I keep going with collaboration, but only with brands who can. I mean, a brand would work on the topic that I wouldn't do by myself. Recently, we made a project with Renault, the cars. I will not doing my own cars in the coming years. So, okay, it makes sense to make a partnership with them. I will not create my own torch. So of course, I make a collaboration with Olympic Committee.
You're a brand. How does that brand work? Do you have a team? Do you have engineers who are able to tell you, well, no, we can't do that like this? Where do you work? What's that process? So first, where do you work? What does your office look like?
I mainly work in Paris, very next to Paris, actually, in Ivry-sur-Seine. This is the left slide. It's a large building where we do have our team. It's, as you said, people who are dealing with engineering, with 3D renderings, with plans, with sales persons, with logistics, all the aspects going from the idea to the final piece. And we do have an additional space in New York. It's basically kind of showroom, but I hate this word. We call it pied-à-terre, and that is, I don't know if there's, no, this is, this is the factory we do have in Ivry.
So that's your office?
That's my office, that's my office. And this is a place where, what?
No, it's a nice office.
Yeah.
No, it's a nice office.
Oh, yes, of course. And we do have a lot of materials and samples and everything, and we do have a workshop there. We cannot dealing with everything. We cannot transform the marble. We cannot blow the glass so far. But we're designing and conceiving and engineering every single components. We are receiving all of them in our factory, and we are assembling everything. We are making all the electricity for the chandelier and so on. And we put it into the crate and we send to the client.
What are you currently working on then? Because you pick your own projects, basically. You decide to create the objects that you want. So what are you working on now?
I will only let my daughter June know that because it's so confidential. So.
And does she cry now at every project, or
no?
Okay.
But one first aspect that I'll always want to, it's when you're designing something, it might be a bench, it might be an armchair, it might be whatever. I want to make people that the first move would be to touch. If you show a new piece and people say, wow, it's beautiful, well done, it's so elegant, but with hum like this, for me it's not good, not good. If you put something and you said, wow, oh, can I touch? I don't know, sorry. But if the first move is that, it's for me the first hint that, okay, you touch something that might be interesting.
You're not going to tell us what you're working on now, okay? But
no, but we are keep going on new collection. We're gonna reveal new pieces in New York in a couple weeks, in Miami in 1 month. They will use several type of material and process, and at the same time, we are make different type of partnership with brand or institution in very, very different fields and in different countries, actually. But I'm not allowed to talk about it.
Okay, so what would you like to design then? You started your career by looking at medication and saying it would be great if people could be reminded to take their medicine and it would work. What's the field that you're looking at and you're saying, this is crap and perhaps we can do better?
School.
Not all schools are crap.
No. You know, when I was a pupil, I was super bored in school. I was asked to remain on my chair, just like more or less this one, just like this, hearing, being focused for hours, and just like probably a lot of us. I wanted to move. I wanted to. I didn't arrive in the morning in the classroom in the same state because life. And for me, I was in a kind of reaction to this moment. And for me, it's a catastrophe. It's a catastrophe. And from the pen to the chair to the walls to the building, I think a lot of things can be done. And it's not specifically complex or expensive or a tabula rasa strategy. Let's give you an example. We start the conversation because I was probably afraid by the audience that way. And minutes after minutes, because maybe more confidence, it was more like this. I just noticed that by talking to you. In a classroom, I'm not allowed to do that. But we need to be able to do that. It's not easy to make a kind of swivel on a chair that, according to my body, we want to move, according to do I am ready to be in front of the teacher or not yet. It's not easy, not expensive, just to be able to do that. Just because your body asks, our species want our body to do that. We know that the more your body is moving, the more your mind is in a good condition. I guess it's Aristotle who discovered that a few years ago. So it's by super basic stuff, you can totally change. Just a short story. A few years ago, I've been asked by an hotel chain to design the business rooms for the hotel. And they asked me to design the kind of board meeting rooms, board meeting table, and everything in the room. And the first things I've done was, how can I design the table to change the behavior physically of the people who attend a large board meeting? And I bring inspiration for poker table. And I brought the comfort, on the cushion all around the table, just to make people instinctively being like this, And usually in the meeting, because it's quite long and quite boring, you're listening to your CEOs. After you are doing this, you're taking your phone, you listen, and at the end of the meeting, you send text messages. So just by very few stuff, you can totally change the way that your body will interact with the rest. And with easy things, you can totally change that. So school might be good stuff.
Just because we do have a few people from Sciences Po in the audience right now, by applause, people, who would like to have classrooms designed by Mathieu Lehanneur? Franchement, le bureau de Monsieur Vassy est pas très loin, mais je suis pas sûr qu'il vous ait entendu. We've been talking about design. We've been talking about all these incredible objects that you create, the ones that we're seeing here. They're tables, they're furnitures that you create, craft, and sell. But none of this can be now created, crafted, or sold without thinking of its impact. The rise of design is sort of, linked to this rise in massive consumerism, where you would have to design objects because they would be really easily sold, easily used, and sometimes easily discarded. Mm-hmm. So how do you take into account the impact of your pieces, especially the ecological impact of your creations?
But when I was in design school, I've been raised in the idea that a designer is supposed to produce massively for the maximum people you get. It was basically a kind of old philosophy, that the one we get just after the Second World War, that basically we need to provide a table, 2 or 3 chairs, a lamp, the basic stuff. And it was making sense to getting massively produced at the right cost for everyone. But we saw today that if you keep going in that way, you just fill the ocean with a kind of 7th continent of plastic. So this is one of the reasons that I decided to move this type of approach and managing and handling everything that we have to produce. And in terms of impact, it's mainly a question of the material you source. Where are they coming from? We are only working with natural materials. The quantity of piece that you're going to produce, in my case, we are producing every piece by order, so it's very not limited edition piece, but it's not massively done, and it's not the idea even for the coming years. And the last thing is the lifetime of a piece you produce. And for every single piece we are producing and selling, and I'm telling that to the future owner, that the piece you are about to purchase will live longer than you. And because we are designing it, making it, preparing it to live at least for a century. So the question of impact, I mean, in terms of, on the material side, it's work on that way. And the impact in terms of the impact physiologically or the impact psychologically, we are testing things, but we do not making some type of survey or analysis to get this information.
The idea is for the students to talk to you directly, which you will do in 5 minutes, but it's also to see how you work, really see you process an idea. So my last question to any of our guests is always the same thing. Could you create something for us right now? Could you show us whether you start at the drawing board, how an idea becomes either a product or something you want to show? I'm going to raise that curtain. I'm going to let you have the board and tell us, how you went from people have to cry to let's have a giant montgolfière in the sky that looks like the sun. So,
first step is
Alors, it's my turn to.
Yeah, I can't help you with that one.
Okay. I will try to remember what were the step that I go through for a project I did for the therapeutic object collection. I talked to you about the asthma treatment, but one of them I wanted to address was antibiotics. And we know that the problem of antibiotics is basically, I will try. This is here, Antibiotics, you are supposed to take your treatment, but your doctor said, you have to take it. You will take it? Oh, sure, I will take it. But your other ears can hear a kind of don't take your antibiotics. Because the noise told you that antibiotics might be dangerous. We take too much antibiotics, you will turn the infection getting stronger. So it's not so clear. So you are in the middle of this. Do, I don't. And we know that at the same time, a lot of time, and I talked with doctor about that and told me many people stop the treatment in the middle of the treatments, probably because of this, because there is do and don't. And the more they feel better during the treatments, after the day 3 or 4, I feel good, so I will stop the treatments. And in terms of pharmacology, it's very bad, because the infection is still here and will become stronger. So I wanted to try a way to help the patients to pull the patient to go to the end. So I wanted to play on this idea of time. It's usually 7 days, a treatment. And we know that our spaces is not super comfortable with time. Time is super abstract, and this is the reason why we have invented, when you are in jail, this, to count the days. We have invented the watches. We have invented the calendar, like this, 1 January, Basically, we have invented the fact to split the time, because time is not easy to visualize. So we continuously split the time. So I thought to myself, I need to split the time to let the patients to come. At the same time, I was thinking that the patient needs to visualize to understand why he should take his treatment. And even more, at the middle of the treatment, I feel better. What should I go to the end? I feel better. So I use what we called the signature theory. And the signature theory, it's an existing theory that rise in the 16th century during Renaissance. And basically, the people at that time were thinking that nature decided to give us some hint about the efficiency of a plant, of a fruit, to cure a part of my illness. And I wanted to basically to make the medicine quite meaningful visually in terms of shape. So this plus this start to create for me the idea of, how can I say that? Yes, a kind of Russian dolls, basically. Russian dolls. Russian dolls, you get an object with inside another object, with inside another object. Blah, blah, blah. And basically my idea was to, by using time, day after day, by using signature theory, by making feeling that the more I go to the treatment, day 1, day 2, day 3, I will see the medication itself, the medicine itself disappearing day after day. And I wanted to give a kind of surprise. So one more inspiration was what we call the Advent calendar. You know, the Advent calendar for kids for Christmas, that you get to open a small window with something inside. It's quite basic, but it's very beautiful because, I don't know if you do have some kids, but it's super interesting that the kids are waiting for Christmas for obvious reason. And if you start to open the window of the Advent calendar the December 1st, they will wait and they will feel the meaning and the pleasure of the wait. So by this way, everything together bring this kind of idea of making a kind of, I will try to design it, but not easy to design, but basically it was an object that was looking basically something like that. I don't know if you visualize it, but it was quite just like something like that. And basically the idea was to make the patients to peel one layer of
Like
one layer
like a berlingot almost, right?
like an onion, you know, like an onion. It's just like layers, just like a Russian doll. And day after day we'll peel, and day after day the medication will be smaller and smaller, and the color will change. And the last day, that was what was big and dark at the first day became small and white. Super. And reminds you what is supposed to be a tablet, you know, and would be quite symbolic, quite playing on the kind of placebo effect on the last one. And by chance, the active principle of pharmaceutical industry is always kind of powder, you know, just like flour, you know. And by this, you can create many shapes, just like a chef in cooking. So the idea was getting the consistency of kind of almond paste, and feeling by this way that, okay, I'm moving day after day, and at the day 3 or day 4, when I feel better, I see no, it remains a kind, this part of infection. I saw what I've done before, and I see the rest, what I've done, I need to do. And by this way, trying to pull the patient to the end of the treatment.
So they want to get to the end of the treatment.
Yes.
My last question is, do your family accept to play Pictionary with you anymore?
Accept to?
Do they play Pictionary with you? Do you win all the time when you have to draw whatever it is that you have to draw?
I do not play at Pictionary anymore because,
okay.
No.
No.
I take too long.
Our guest is here for you. So who has questions?
I had a question. I was wondering what was your personal opinion about the official Olympic mascot, the fridges? what would you have done if you were the official designer? And another question, more about the balloon launch experience. How did you manage all the music show, the lights, the angle camera, to make sure that the experience was fully successful?
About the fringe, I was not a big fan of them. I love the idea that really looks like a clitoris. It was very good things, but I was not a big fan. But frankly, I'm not a big fan of any mascot, you know. But I love the fact that they have been able to make moving the fringe. I mean, it's not a kind of static design that is always the same, but they played with this and turning some from the one we know from to disco to a different type of mood. So playing with it. So I'm not a big fan of it, but I guess it was very big success at the end of the day. About your question about the way to film the Olympic Culture, I didn't manage. I was not invited to give my opinion on that topic, because basically, for you to know, it's all the production and film for the opening ceremony and the entire Olympic Games is handled by the IOC directly and the team of the IOC. So they came few days before the opening ceremony just to check, trying to make some tests with drones and so on. And frankly, I wanted to see what will be the Olympic cauldrons flying into the sky with drones. But for the opening ceremony for the Olympics, there was out of order. There was one drone, and he had never been able to fly. Okay, congratulations. And for the Paralympics opening ceremony, they brought 3 or 4 drones in the Tuileries Garden for the takeoff, and all of them have been going into trees. So I have never been able to see the Olympic cauldron flying with the drones. Okay, but no, this is, you know, in my work, of course I want and I try to control everything and every single aspect, but of course you need to work and to deal with some topics, and like film, I didn't involve in this.
Yes, thank you so much. I just wanted to start by saying thank you and congratulations for the design on the Olympic cauldron, because I think it really kind of like served its purpose. It created this feeling of belonging for the people who live in Paris and in general for the French audience, and voila. The second is, I have a question. What do you think is the importance of this kind of artifacts in uniting today's societies, and how do we go about doing that? Do we need to reinterpret old things like what you did with the church, or should we create new ones?
I don't care. Now the question is, when you are designing things and you put a new object in this planet, this object doesn't exist as itself. I mean, I see this object through my eyes and through my mind and through my culture. It means basically that it needs to, this shape, this finishes, this color, going through all the layers of basically the billions objects that I've seen since I'm born. So I cannot only being focused on designing one object. I need to take into account that all this active principle will be disturbed, will be transformed through my eyes and through my mind. It means that I always need to take into account that what have been done historically in the art history and so on, and how can I catch the attention for a few seconds, otherwise you will never see it. So I need to catch your attention for a few seconds. And after I catch your attention, the object I've created needs to give you more, needs to transmit more information, and make you want it to get back or wanted to get it for life. So I need to play with all those elements. So it's not only a question of interpreting or reinterpreting historical stuff or making new just for making new. It's dealing with what we are.
Yes, is it right? Yes, just saying also thank you for the hot balloon, because I think it brings a lot of beauty in Paris landscape, and I think in French landscape. And I think perhaps today is like observing beauty is the bigger like dream that we can have. So I wanted to ask you a simple question. Do you describe yourself as optimistic?
I would describe myself as a pessimistic, but who made the choice of the optimism.
Hi, thank you for your talk today. I just wanted to say that I know an amazing designer. Her name is Marie-Marie Defour, and if you're hiring a sustainability senior designer, you should definitely look her up. So my question is, are you hiring? I think it interests other people in the room as well.
I do all my best to avoid any turnover of the team. We try to remain as stable and strong as we can. So we are always open to get a new person and to hire people. But we are not this type of company, just like, in many cases, architecture firm who are working on competition, so I need to increase the team, and when they win or lose the competition, they will reduce the team, and continuously that way. We are working in a more, consistent and stable way. So, but yes, we are still open. Let's send your resume.
Hello. Thank you very much for your presentation. I may have kind of a rough question, but what's your pricing policy, and basically how do you justify and define the monetary value of your objects?
So how much does it cost?
The Olympic cauldron, you mean, or collections? Our collection it goes from 15K to 100K. It's quite expensive, actually. Quite expensive. Quite expensive, first of all, for a simple reason, is making things at this quality level and complexity level it's quite expensive. Everything we are doing, we are making, is making in France. For two main reasons. First of all, because we do have an amazing ecosystem of artisans in France. And the second thing is we and I need to go and visit artisans and to see by yourself all the things. So if it might be in Asia, it might be more difficult to follow. So everything together, yeah, the price point is quite high. We will know what it will be. We will know, I don't know yet if, you know, this approach by designing furniture, chandelier, and so on, was for me a first step. But from me to you, I would love that my maybe last step might be to design my own medicine. We were talking about that. And for me, the idea, I wanted to start with something, but the idea behind that is controlling everything from the idea to the end, and it can be everything. It can be everything. So it's more easy to make a stool than to making antibiotics, but I keep in mind that if the industry is not ready to make my antibiotics, I will try to do it by my own.
Hi, I had a question that is a question from someone who doesn't know anything about design. So you said when you're designing an object or something, you are trying to be in the mind of people who will use it, but you don't necessarily ask directly them about it. And for example, in theater, when you're directing a play, what you learn is that you can never guess what people will think or when they will laugh or cry. So how do you make it work?
Sometimes it works, sometimes not. But if I do have one talent or if I do have one expertise, it's being a kind of, how to say, a kind of membrane, super sensitive, and able to catch and to feel what is happening in that world. And from that, my choice might be to hear this tiny vibration or deciding to not to hear. But this vibration is not something coming from one or two people. It's something in the air, basically. It's something in the air. If I would met the patient in the palliative care department, would be probably super moving, super interesting. But I would probably have met 20 people, okay? Or 50 people, okay? It might be 50 unique story. But I can do the same with 5,000 people, but it might be 5,000 people's story. So it's not the way to work. I really do prefer to try to feel, try to hear this membrane and try to see that what I would love to be in contact with if I would be this person, on which part, on which level I would address to myself if I would be this person.
Hello. So thank you very much for your ideas on coping with asthma or what you showed us over there concerning the antibiotics. So I wanted to go back to this theme, which is health. And from a designer's perspective, why do you feel nowadays there are so many cases of mental health issues? And what do you think needs to be redesigned to help us cope with that? Thank you.
I don't know. No. The project Live that we talked about, this blank canvas with a hole, might be considered as an art piece and not a design piece. But I don't care. I don't think there is a clear boundaries between. It was probably in my mind, the first step for that was just showing the situation. And you can decide, and you can let people getting their own position toward this. But it was probably, for me, a way to open a kind of dialogue for that. After that, in terms of design strictly, I don't know, or I don't know yet. You know, sometime in this kind of topic, I need I need the question, of course, but it takes time to bring an answer. It's not, bam, it's not a connection with God, doing this, bim, baf, baf. No. But it's I would love to, definitely I would love to. And I absolutely don't know how it would be, if it might be an object, it might be a space, if it might be something else. I don't know. I don't think it might be an object. I don't think so. But it's really a topic I would love to attend. But basically, I remain super interested and fascinated by the medical field. In a decade ago, I've been contacted by neurosurgeons who were working on the way to work on your brain, but physically by opening your head, your skull, and working on the brain. And they contact me and they told me that we find out a new way to operate people, and usually we try to let them awake. We need to discuss with them while we are open the schools and working on the brain. And we would like you to design something for the patient who are basically like this, with the school open, and they're working on that. And basically, they want to let the patient awake. It's just to talk with them and to be sure that whatever the place in the brain they will interact with, you're not going to lose a part of your language or lose a part of your skills or whatever. And they told me, we would like you to design object that we could give to the patient to interact with and just to check if everything is running good. And it's my bigger regret. But at this moment, I don't know why, but I've been scared. I've been scared about attending this. A man or woman I could talk to while she's being operated in terms of brain. So I told stupidly to the neurosurgeon team that, sorry, but I do not have time right now to manage this type of project. But it's my bigger regret so far. So just to let you know that we are keep going with medical industry and medical field. But probably this night I will think about your question and not providing an answer, but trying for myself to what would I do if.
Hi, I have a question. Maybe you already answered in a way. It was regarding, for instance, your piece on Live et Live. You answer in a way, so maybe it's not very interesting, but where do you draw the line between design and art? Also, especially with the object you design for people with asthma and the way that it afterwards was an art piece at the MoMA. Like, where do you draw the line between these two industries, I guess? And like, where do you consider yourself more of a designer rather than an artist, and where the line can be blurry, I guess? Thank you.
We could discuss hours and days and weeks about what is the boundary and the clear frontier between those two fields. And it might be super interesting, but at the end, nobody cares. At the end, nobody cares. I mean, nobody, the potential user, but just like you and me. I need a design object to get the water in, but tomorrow I'll need to be in contact with an art piece. And the things we are in contact with, at the end, we never consider them just it is art or it's not. State of the world, of course, the function of state of the world, the pyramid, probably it's more belong to the art world, but it's not so different than an Earth globe that we would get on your desk. An Earth globe is on the desk of many teenagers just to see the world, the country, and nobody sees a globe, an Earth globe, as an art piece. It could be an art piece, but it's not. So even this, it's not an art piece. So the question of art and design, for me, the only question is, what do I want to reach? What do I want to target? And if I need design for this, I will take the design. And if I need art for this, I will take the art tools. But just like type of medium, just to reach the point I want to reach. But probably I choose design because I strongly believe that the strategy of the design might be definitely more efficient and powerful than the art strategy. An art piece usually is on the vertical way. It's just like an equal from you. And the art piece, in most of the case, unconsciously asks you to admire it. You cannot touch it, and it just faces you. It might be a sculpture, it might be a painting. It faces you at kind of equal, and vertical and equal. And I love the fact that design is probably more humble in the strategy. Design is usually more horizontal. It's more like this, more sneaky probably, but just like a Troy horse. It's arriving in your life in a more discreet way, more humble way, but when it's entering in your life, it's be able to pop up and putting the army and the soldier in your home. So probably I choose design for this reason.
Bonsoir, Mathieu. Thank you very much for your intervention. My name is Steve, and I have two questions for you. The first question is, what's your opinion and what's your advice on continuing to build things as you grow? Because when you grow, you stop playing a lot with Legos, you stop playing with clay, and even, let's say, building houses on Minecraft. So as you grow older, you stop building things. What's your advice on keeping on building things as you grow older? And my second question is more of a technical one. It's whether you're actually using generative AI in your projects and how you have integrated this new technology in your way of building, and whether you encourage your team to use AI as part of their rendering process or like to create new marketing campaigns, or if you're completely against it and you hate it and you think it's killing creativity, kind of what's your take on this?
If I count, probably there was 10 questions, no? Why should we making things? That's the question. It depends. 99% of the piece that sometimes, or one day, or 1 hour I wanted to make will never exist. Only 1% of the piece will finally being done. And in my case, it's usually starting by a prototype, and sometimes it remains a prototype. So it's never a question of deciding to produce massively. It's arriving step by step. But I still convinced that we keep needing objects, we keep needing things, and I'm sure we will forever. Since when we were in the cave, even we took some object, we are doing things that even it was not only for a useful approach, maybe it was not a tool, we need stuff. We need to be in contact with objects. This is one of the key points of our spaces. There is a beautiful movie, the very first movie of George Lucas, called THX, and I don't know the number after that. And the topic of the movie, this first film of sci-fi movie of George Lucas, was a world without object, a world without anything. It was all of the film have been filmed in a blank decor. It's only character in the blank and without any object. And basically, you can easily understand that you become mad because you do not touch anything and you do not have any symbol in hands to making things. So even if it's not a question of functionality, but in terms of emotion and symbolic and transmitting things, we probably need object. About the question of AI, I use AI as a kind of perfect intern. basically. I use AI to making a quick image about few ideas randomly diffused into the AI. I never use the AI to provide me ideas. And for a simple reason is AI is based on statistics, is based on everything that have already been done. So if I...
Mesdames, messieurs, nous vous informons que le bâtiment
AI.
va fermer ses portes dans quelques minutes. Merci de bien vouloir commencer à vous diriger vers les sorties.
That's our biggest design flaw in the school. That's his appariteur talking to you. It will stop in like a second, and you can answer about AI, and then we have 2 questions that we'll take in a row.
Mesdames, messieurs, nous vous informons que le bâtiment va fermer ses portes dans quelques minutes. Merci de bien vouloir commencer à vous diriger vers les sorties. Ladies and gentlemen, we inform you that we shall close within a few minutes.
I can try to talk on it, but
Thank you for starting to go to the exit.
not easy. So basically, if I use AI to say the AI, show me how this looks like to getting a kind of pale gold, huge balloon in the sky of Paris, I would like to see how it looks like. It's super useful, super efficient. But if I would ask to the same AI, give me some ideas to design the new Olympic cauldron for the Paris 2024, it will never ever provide me a balloon, a flying balloon, for sure. Because it's going to be just making a kind of putting layers of all the already existing Olympic cauldrons and probably getting a shape of Eiffel Tower or something like that.
And thank you so much for everything. And I just had a quick question. What would be your craziest dream in terms of design? Like, what is the biggest and craziest thing you could think about?
You know, you probably noticed that I quite often talk about life and death. And the question of death is a question that I really catch me. And I would like to make a project about... I do not feel comfortable to be inside the earth because I'm quite claustrophobic. I do not feel comfortable to be burned because I always like the idea that there is maybe a second chance to be waking up in few centuries, so I'm not super convinced by the idea to be fired. So, and I love the idea of being in the universe. So I since a long time, I think about an idea that I am in this type of coffin, but not sealed. I can open it if I need. And it would be shipped into the space, and I would be not on orbit on Earth, but just moving into the space. And very few chance to be waking up, but I love the idea. I would love to make it.
And our very last design is the way you say thank you to Mathieu Lehanneur for this conversation.
Merci.